Hey everybody, it's Mr. Hasquin, and I'm back with more things that you should know by being alive. And today I want to talk about the 5440 or fight dispute between the United States and Britain. And just basically I want to cover what it meant, the Oregon boundary dispute, its connection to James K. Polk, and its overall outcome. So what does 5440 or fight mean? This was something I studied, I think I was in 8th grade and had to write a research paper on it, and so it's always stuck with me. But 5440 or fight was a slogan that was used by American expansionists in the 1840s. This is all a product of the belief in manifest destiny. And it referred to the northern boundary of the Oregon Territory at the latitude 54 degrees 40 minutes, basically the southern tip of Alaska. And supporters meant that the U.S. should claim all of Oregon all the way up to that line there in the image. And if Britain didn't agree, well then, hey, you know what? Then Americans were willing to fight for it. And so what exactly was the Oregon Territory at the time? So the Oregon Territory included modern-day, the states of Oregon, Washington, Idaho, parts of Montana and Wyoming, and parts of British Columbia, which of course is Canada today. And in the early 1800s, both the U.S. and Britain claimed this region, and you had settlers there and fur traders from both nations settling in this area. And in 1818, they agreed to a joint occupation. But eventually, tensions grew as more American settlers began moving in via the Oregon Trail. And put this in some context, I'll talk a little bit more about manifest destiny. In the 1840s, manifest destiny, that belief that the United States was destined to expand across North America was at its height. Americans wanted to control the entire continent from sea to shining sea. They wanted to secure land for farming and trade and natural resources. They also wanted to prevent European powers from claiming territory in North America, setting up additional rivalries for the United States. Now, in 1844, in that presidential election, James K. Polk campaigned on expansion, and he promised to annex Texas, secure California, and gain Oregon up to the 5440 line. So 5440 or fight became a rallying cry for expansionists during Polk's campaign. So while Americans pushed for all of Oregon, Britain just wanted to maintain its claims in this region. And Britain and the United States risked going to war over the territory as both nations increased settlement and they increased their trade there. However, both nations also wanted to avoid conflict, especially as the United States was about to enter into a war with Mexico, which would lead to the Mexican-American War. So, what we end up with, the Oregon Treaty of 1846. So in 1846, the United States and Britain signed the Oregon Treaty, which set the boundary at the 49th parallel, which wasn't 5440, of course. It gave the U.S. land that would later become Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and parts of Montana and Wyoming. And it allowed Britain to keep all of Vancouver Island, even though the 49th parallel cuts through it, and also allowed Britain to maintain navigation rights in the region. Now, the U.S. achieved expansion without war. It prioritized stability while still fulfilling some manifest destiny goals. So what's the legacy of 5440 or fight? Well, although the slogan was aggressive, the U.S. chose diplomacy over conflict. So the Oregon Treaty solidified American claims in the Pacific Northwest. It cleared the way for westward expansion and additional settlement, and it reduced British influence in the continental United States. It also showed President Polk's willingness to compromise when it was necessary, while still expanding American territory significantly. Why does it matter? What's the point? Why am I bringing this up? So 5440 or fight reminds us how territorial disputes and expansion and diplomacy have shaped the borders of the United States. It's a window back into manifest destiny and the ambitions that drove U.S. policy back in the 1800s. So 5440 or fight wasn't just a catchy slogan. It represented how Americans were willing to push boundaries, sometimes literally, to expand westward. So hey, if this was anything new for you, like, comment, follow for more things that you should know by being alive, because understanding things like 5440 or fight helps us see how expansionism and diplomacy and ambition have shaped America. Thanks for watching.